Corey Heim wins his second NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race of the season. It's unfortunate for everyone else in that series. A Canadian newspaper said NASCAR's headed back north of the border next year, and Travis Pastrana test a 410 sprint car, and apparently Cleetus McFarland wants to as well. Welcome back to Brake Hard. I'm Matt. The Brake Hard tip of the day: if you're using spray foam, do not get it into your hair or on your arm hair at that. It hurts in both instances. Thankfully, I was able to get out of my hair without doing too much damage. The arm hair, on the other hand, yeah, I'm pretty sure I pulled off a decent portion of it at that. I even had a Tyvek suit on as well. That doesn't matter. Let's get into what we want to talk about today. And we're going to start off with the Truck Series race that happened on Friday night from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway that was interrupted by two separate rain delays. And I'll be honest, hand up, I fell asleep on the couch watching this race because at one point it felt like it was dragging on forever. It's like being in a casino in Las Vegas and there's no windows. You have no idea if the sun's up, if it's midnight, if it's raining outside. Who knows? The world could be ending. Time simply does not matter when you're in a casino. And it felt like that on Friday night watching this truck race where it was like time does not matter at this point. Ultimately did end up finishing the race. I did wake up in time to catch the last 4 laps of this race. Overall, I went back and watched it on Saturday morning because, well, I stayed up to watch F1 qualifying at that. Also fell asleep during that as well. So just a real tired night over here at the Brake Hard household. But Corey Heim ends up picking up his second NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series win of the season. Obviously, he won Daytona when Parker Kligerman was disqualified. Popped him out of there. Corey Heim slides in. Weird. But ultimately, he's now won 2 of the first 3 races for the Truck Series this season. That's 2/3 of the races. That's 66%. Of 25 races, that means he's on pace to win 16 races this season. Clearly, that's not going to happen the same way that Chris Bell's not going to win 27 races in the Cup Series. But for Heim and his rivals, well, this is really bad for his rivals because letting the best driver in the Truck Series get off to an absolutely incredible start to the season and rack up playoff points already, not ideal at that. Heim, who qualified 16th, his truck was set up for handling, right? When we get to these faster racetracks in the Cup Series, we see it happen as well. In the Truck Series, you definitely see it happen. A lot of the guys that qualified up front, their cars, or trucks rather in this situation, are set up for speed. They want to try to run up front. They want to try to stay out of all the mess in the back. Some of the guys that qualified back in the teens, 16th in Corey Heim's situation, they have handling built into their truck. They're going to be able to drive through the field, and that's exactly what Corey Heim did. He drove from 16th up to the lead, and yeah, his truck looked really good there at the end. I mean, ultimately, I think of the top 5, 4 of the top 5 started 15th or lower. So maybe there's something to be said about handling being built into these race trucks because it worked out really well. Corey Day, on the other hand, he was your pole sitter. First ever pole in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Tip of the hat to him because that's really incredible. He has, I believe this was his 12th ever race on pavement Friday night. Gets the pole, scores stage points in both stages. Really good there for him. Ultimately ends up cutting a tire down because of contact, finishing 2 laps down in 27th. I think for Corey Day, finishing these races is exactly what he needs to focus on. And he did finish, don't get me wrong there, but finishing on the lead lap and, you know, getting the most that you can out of your day without having these type of small mistakes. And he had a couple small ones. And obviously, again, it's only his 12th ever race on pavement, his 5th ever truck race at that. It's hard to compare him to somebody because a lot of the guys that come up through the development system have had a lot of races on pavement already, and Heim just doesn't have that. He doesn't have that many starts in a full-body stock car, and he's getting them kind of in real time. Baptism by fire out here, and I'm not making excuses for him because he got to clean up the mistakes that he's made, but ultimately it's hard to compare him to a Connor Zilisch or Carson Kvapil or, you know, a Josh Berry when he was climbing up through the NASCAR ranks, or Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, stuff like that, because all those guys ran full seasons or partial seasons either in late models or in ARCA East, Canon East West back then. Day just hasn't done that. So yeah, I'm going to be interested to see sort of how it all progresses for him, but ultimately he ran a good race, just not the finish that he wants. And Hendrick are big believers in him, and I hope that he starts to figure this out as the season goes on, because again, kid's got talent, just got to, you know, kind of clean it up here. Tanner Gray. Not often do we talk Tanner Gray on this channel, if ever, but he got a 3rd place finish on Friday night. His ties his career best ever finish on a non-super speedway track. So his best ever finish is a 3rd. The last time he finished 3rd was 2021 at Martinsville, I believe. He also finished 3rd at Las Vegas that year as well, if I'm not mistaken, or well, it was 2020. Regardless, I'm not a Tanner Gray historian here by any means, but I do remember those. So for him, that's a really good run. That truck looked really stout on Friday night, and he was able to do a lot like Heim did and drive up through the field. So yeah, I think when the Truck Series does head back to Vegas or another mile-and-a-half racetrack, drivability is going to be very important in these race trucks. Grandin Finger finished second on Friday night. Tyler Ankrum looked like he had a really good truck Friday night as well, and ultimately didn't get the finish that he probably deserved out of it. Thorsport trucks of Majeski and Ben Rhodes, again, looked really stout. The front row motorsport trucks are going to be a problem once they all get it figured out between Chandler Smith and Lane Riggs. Ultimately, pretty solid race. Nothing crazy happened out of it. Some obviously rain delays and stuff like that. But yeah, it was the Truck Series at Las Vegas. Oh, hello there! I put on my best Canadian dress shirt because according to La Journal de Quebec, the Journal of Quebec in English for everyone out there, NASCAR is headed back north of the border in 2026 with the NASCAR Xfinity Series and Truck Series headed to Montreal, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on the Notre Dame Island, with the Cup Series falling behind in 2027. Now we know NASCAR has had lengthy conversations with Montreal about coming back to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and we'll see if that actually does come to fruition. Obviously, this came from a French newspaper in Quebec. We'll have to see how it plays out there, but I'm sure Robbie Gordon is absolutely chomping at the timbits to get back there because he made himself look like a bit of a pigeon in 2007. But ultimately, that guy was really good around that track. And yeah, he's a little bit older now, but I would absolutely approve Robbie Gordon to run all three series. Screw it. Try for the weekend sweep if that's end up happening in 2027. The Xfinity Series raced at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve from 2007 until 2012. Kevin Harvick picked up the first win ever for the Xfinity Series in Canada after the madness that was Robbie Gordon taking out Marcus Ambrose, NASCAR penalizing him, Robbie Gordon taking the checker flag and proceeding to do burnouts even though he was black flagged and no longer being scored in the race. Seriously, go back and watch it if you want. It's absolutely wild. The things that happened there. He even got suspended for the Cup Series race the next day in Pocono. NASCAR was just not playing around at that. Canadian hero Ron Fellows picked up a win driving for Junior Motorsports in the GoDaddy car. Justin Allgaier was the last driver to win at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in 2012. And hey, if Danica's in the race, nobody throw their shoe out on the racetrack so she can run over it and ultimately ruin her day. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, go to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. It's a better racetrack. It's got elevation changes, the Truck Series race there. And I understand all of that. I do. It's out in the countryside, outside of Toronto, where the hosers live. But it's people have been in my comments on TikTok are like, oh, it's in the greater Toronto area. Okay, I mean, sure, it's in the greater Toronto area, the same way that like Dayton is in the greater Cincinnati area. Fine, okay, it's an hour away, whatever. Montreal is a better choice for NASCAR. The infrastructure is already there. It is in a city, essentially. It has public transit to get to the racetrack, and the infrastructure is already in place there. That's if NASCAR is adding a track, that's where they want to go. I saw somebody comment and they're like, oh, by your logic, then you should remove Sonoma and Watkins Glen from the schedule as well. First off, Sonoma, no. It's 40 minutes from San Francisco, 30 minutes from Oakland, 15 minutes from Vallejo. It makes a lot of sense to be there. Watkins Glen's a legacy track. If NASCAR's adding a track to the schedule, they're going to go to a place that makes sense. A place like Montreal, because they want to bring the product to the people. There's always something to do. That's what Leroy and Leroy say. And there is always something to do, especially if you're in Montreal. No offense to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, but I don't think it has the infrastructure to host a Cup Series weekend at this point. So somebody say, oh, they could pack 100,000 people in there. Yeah, in theory, they could. Will they? Sure, but everybody's going to complain about traffic issues. They just literally don't have the infrastructure there as it currently stands to do that. So we'll see if NASCAR does end up confirming that they're going back to Canada. And if they do, hey, I'll travel north of the border to head up to Montreal. I don't speak French, but I think we'll be able to get by because I think it would be a really, really fun time and see how the Cup cars handle around that circuit. Today's video is sponsored by Driven Sunglasses. I even have the shirt on today as well. I wear the Camber and the Classics every single day. They're phenomenal sunglasses. I've got like 4 or 5 pairs of them around the house. I wear them to every racetrack I go to as well. Josh Berry wears them. A number of other drivers wear them. So head over to drivensunglasses.com today. Check it out. Use code BRAKEHARD at checkout for 20% off plus free shipping. Last story of the day. Travis Pastrana tested a 410 sprint car with the High Limit Series on Friday at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway Dirt dirt track, driving the Ridge & Sons number 199 car, because of course it was always going to be the number 199. There's no plans for him to currently race it. He does appear to be wanting to do some testing and could potentially race the car down the line. The man has ripped just about everything with an engine at this point. If it had not been in a 410 sprint car until Friday, and he got out afterwards and said that might be the most extreme thing I've ever done. Keep in mind, this dude jumped out of an airplane without a parachute on, and he said a 410 might be the most extreme thing he's ever done. 410 sprint cars are badass machines. I've said that before in the Ty Gibbs video earlier in the week. You owe it to yourself. If High Limit or World of Outlaws comes somewhere near your town, definitely go out and check it out, because seeing it in person is even crazier. They're just absolutely throwing these cars into the corner. The power to weight ratio is insane. The balls that you have to do it is wild. So Travis Pastrana went out there and tested it. Kyle Larson showed up as well, gave him some pointers. The video they posted, he was absolutely not ripping it by 410 standards, but it's one of those race cars you got to build up to if you've never been in an open wheel type of sprint car like that before. Another driver was also supposed to test as well, that being Cleetus McFarland. Garrett Mitchell, who of course has started his foray into stock car racing with the ARCA Daytona race, will be running the ARCA Talladega race next month as well. And all things were go for him to test this car, except he literally wouldn't fit. Garrett is about 6'6", and from one giraffe to another, can confirm not going to fit, at least not comfortably or safely. I sat in one a couple years ago, and I was incredibly uncomfortable and ultimately would not have done it because I did not feel safe. Not that I'm ever going to drive a 410 sprint car, but I could potentially explore driving a midget, maybe even a dirt late model at some point later this year. We'll see about that. I got to get a brake hard fire suit made first. Also, on that point, if you do know somebody that does fire suits, I'm tall and skinny. I'm 6'5", and I weigh about 180 pounds. So I'm not a big guy by any means. I'm tall. I'm a very tall person, but most fire suits are just not made for my body type. So if you have a good suggestion on where to buy a fire suit at, or if you're someone of similar size, let me know, because I'm ultimately going to need to buy one relatively soon. So Garrett Mitchell getting into one of these cars, Cleetus McFarland, is something that appears to be happening. Ridge & Sons said that they would build a bigger car for him, a tall car as they referred to it as. And hey, I would love to see him get out there and try to do it, because Cleetus getting involved in racing has been really good for racing. Yeah, he's doing the ARCA race, like I said, at Talladega later this year. I think we'll probably maybe end up seeing him do some other things as well. And if he wants to jump into the dirt side of things, that's going to bring a ton of eyeballs to dirt racing that weren't previously on it before. And I still stand by the fact that NHRA absolutely needs to reach out to him and try to get him into, I don't know which class he would be interested in running, but like Pro Stock makes the most sense, like the easiest one to sort of get into in terms of budget and everything like that, because it's going to bring a ton of eyes to an NHRA event, a national event at that. So yeah, I think this guy right now is doing a lot for racing, and whether he continues to do it and his followers wanted to do that, that remains up in the air. But I would love to see him try anything out, because hey, at the end of the day, it's good for racing. He makes great content, and it brings new eyeballs to the sport, which is a good thing for everyone involved. So let me know in the comments what you think about Corey Heim winning 2 of the first 3 in the Truck Series race on Friday night in Las Vegas. NASCAR headed back north of the border, potentially in 2026 and 2027. And Travis Pastrana testing a sprint car, as well as Cleetus McFarland possibly, potentially doing it as well. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BrakeHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BrakeHardBlog.